I lean towards agreeing with Dak. He won't have 10 interceptions this year as long as he allows the star to be the defense. If he allows the star to be the defense, then he won't. But if he thinks in those situations, those long yardage situations, that I got to be the guy, I got to be a superhero, I got to be the star, he'll flirt with having 10 plus again.
And Sal, you were making another point, and it's a perfect picture of it. But you were making another point about him holding onto the ball, and those two things might go hand in hand with each other.
Well, I think he holds on to the ball because guys are not getting open or they have miscommunications on the routes, as Dan Orlovsky just pointed out. But they brought in Brandon Cooks. Very important addition. The Cowboys brought in Brandon Cooks to rule in the slot and get open on option routes so that when Dak Prescott is in the shotgun formation like that, he can catch the ball and get rid of it. As Dan just mentioned, these were second and long, third and long. Unmanageable down and distance. You don't want your quarterback making mistakes in those situations. That's why you bring in Brandon Cooks. But the bottom line is what McCarthy and what Brian Schottenheimer will attempt to do is that on first and second down, they will get him better sticks so that he doesn't have to become the hero on 3rd and 8 or 2nd and long.
Right. But of course, it goes without saying, every team wants to do that. And so there are going to be situations where the quarterback has to make a play, and sometimes you have to live to fight another day or another down. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick before Kmart gets in, there is an interesting or important point that I want to make. The last thing you want to do is get him to be tentative or hesitant. I've seen it in the NFL. I've seen coaches take quarterbacks that are good players, and Dak's a good player, and go, hey, we're going to play great defense. We're going to, not turn the ball over. We're going to have good special teams. And all of a sudden, they're not aggressive with the football, and they become cautious with the football. You cannot be great in the NFL at playing quarterback if you're cautious with the football. So it's a very fine line. It's almost talking out both sides of your mouth.
Yeah.
You can't give the ball away. You cannot be forcing with the football or overly aggressive. You also got to put the ball in harm's way at times and be aggressive with the football. So that's the challenge for Mike McCarthy and Dak is, can you kind of walk that line week by week by week?
So I'm glad that Dan said it sounds like you're talking out of both sides of your mouth, because I agree with Dak on 2 points. One, he won't have 10 interceptions again. And two, he was saying it's not about the receivers, but yeah, it is, because when we're talking about miscommunication, we're talking about guys not getting open, separation, that to me is a wide receiver problem. But bigger than that, I heard everything Dan was saying, and it made me think of this must be what Mike McCarthy wants, which is Dak not to feel like he has to be the hero. Don't play hero ball. We're gonna spread it out. We're gonna have some play action. Like, let's get things more manageable and efficient. But when we think about the best quarterbacks in the NFL, who are we telling? Are we telling Patrick Mahomes? And I'm not comparing them, but when you have franchise guys, are we telling Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and even Justin, like, don't be the star. Don't go out there and try to be the hero. Don't be the star. Like, they are the star. In Dallas, he is the star. He's wearing the star. So to me, what is happening in Dallas and how they view Dak, it almost doesn't make sense. It's sort of like all the pressure's on you. You're the guy, but yet you're not really the guy. Like, trust the defense more. And that it just I don't understand what it is with Dak in Dallas and the pressure and the expectations and then the criticism. It just is wild to me.
Well, I mean, and it also does lead to, I remember not that long ago, we were having a conversation about whether or not he would get his contract extended during this offseason, and that sort of filtered away into nothing. He has 2 years left of guaranteed money. So I think that there is a lot of his future that also depends on what happens. Last year was a setback. I mean, there's no two ways. I'm a fan. I'm a huge believer and supporter. But last year was a setback. Fool me once kind of thing. But 2 bad years in a row, we could have a real problem.
Well, the offensive coaching staff is going to do exactly what Dan Orlovsky just did. They're going to sit him in a room and they're going to go through the clips of his interceptions and say, listen, when you're throwing into triple coverage like that, you're going to get into trouble, especially on 3rd and 8 or longer or 2nd and 8 or longer. Do yourself a favor and live to play another day. Either throw it away if you don't have it, or let's punt and let's move on. But don't give the other football team an opportunity to take the football away. That, to me, is the bottom line. I'm sure that Brian Schottenheimer, who's a very smart guy, has already done that with Dak Prescott. And Mike McCarthy has already done that with Dak Prescott. When you're playing the Eagles, the middle of the field is going to be open. Take advantage of it.
Herman Edwards always used to say, every drive should end in a kick. We either kick an extra point, we kick a field goal, or we punt it away. But every drive needs to end in a kick.
To sit there and say they're the most disrespected team in the NFL, I think they're a playoff team if Jordan Love doesn't stink. I've said that for months now, so I understand where that premise is. It's more just we just don't know if that young talent is all going to pan out this year.
What do you think, Kmart?
You know, as a reporter, this is one of the things I hate. Players and coaches use the like us against the world thing. It's like, nobody's killing you guys. It really is. You just lost a Hall of Fame quarterback, and you're replacing him with a guy that's had one start. We just haven't seen it. If all the draft talk about Jordan Love pans out to be true, and what you guys have seen behind the scenes ends up being true, then great. You guys are a playoff team. Jordan Love has the potential to get this team to the playoffs because he's got everything that a young quarterback needs. A strong running game, a strong defense, and guess what? A front office and coaching staff that 100% believes in him. They moved up to draft him. So the stage is set for him to be successful. But again, Mr. Clark, it's not about disrespect. Dan just said it. It's hard to respect the unknowns. So we'll see.
What do you think, Sal?
Well, Uncle Sal said on Get Up yesterday,
yes.
You were there, right?
Yes.
You asked me the question.
Yes.
We were standing at the board. I said they're going to be last in the division. And it's not because they're not a talented, hardworking team and they have a young quarterback who really wants to be better and they have a coaching staff that's very good and they are the Green Bay Packers. You don't play in a vacuum. You're playing other teams. The Bears got better. Ryan Pace has really improved that linebacker position. Ryan Pace has done a really good job of overhaul. Justin Fields, I believe, is going to take another step. And the Bears have the easiest schedule, or one of the easiest schedules in the NFL. Minnesota Vikings added Brian Flores. That changes the aperture of their defense from the one they had under Ed Donatel. It's going to be much more difficult to complete passes in the middle of the field because of the way Brian Flores runs his defense. And we all know that Detroit has gotten better. So I would say the Packers, because why do they have the worst odds to win the division? They have the most inexperienced quarterback, maybe the worst quarterback in the division, and the other teams have gotten better.
What do you think,
That
Danny?
might be disrespect, Sal. That right there.
Danny,
That-
why was
That would be.
What's the face?
Kmart took the words right out of my mouth. I strongly disagree with South Bell. I think the Lions are the favorite in this division. Absolutely. The Bears had the number one pick in the draft. They had a number one pick in the draft for a reason. That roster, while it's improved, is not nearly as good as the Green Bay Packers roster. Not nearly top to bottom as good as the Packers roster. I think Minnesota's the team that falls off a bunch because they lost a lot of talent, and I understand Flores being a big part of that addition defensively and the attacking style. I look at Green Bay and say this, and I've said this, Greeny, and you've heard me say it. If Jordan Love is average, this team is playing for a playoff spot in December. If he's average, if he's anything like a first-round pick should be, this is a playoff team.
It's a fascinating division. You know, at this time of year, I guess every division is interesting because there were a lot of questions out there. But this one, I think, is particularly so. The Packers have a lot invested in Jordan Love, both in capital and in sort of in the decisions they made surrounding their legendary former quarterback. Let's see what direction it goes.
OBJ could have a massive year because Zay Flowers will run those 9 routes, will open up the safeties, open up the middle of the field, and Mark Andrews and Todd Monken and that offense, all about speed and spacing and pacing. Get the ball out quickly.
So what does it add up to for Baltimore?
I think Baltimore has a shot to dethrone Kansas City as the AFC Super Bowl contender.
You know, they're a team that people don't talk a lot about. We talk about Kansas City. We talk about Cincinnati. Yeah.
You know why? Because for so long it has been Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews trying to do everything for that offense in Baltimore. Baltimore, think about it. This was a place where free agent wide receivers were like, I don't need to go to Baltimore because they just run the ball. That's what they do. And now finally, people have critiqued Lamar Jackson as not being a complete quarterback. Well, now he actually has some weapons, and not just one weapon, a lot of weapons. I did think Dan's bold prediction was interesting about Odell Beckham. Do you know the last time Odell Beckham had 1,300 receiving yards?
It would have been a
I'm going to
giant
say
for sure, right?
2018.
2016,
Yeah.
fellas. That's a long time. So if that bears fruit, that would be amazing, because I think if this team can stay healthy, the Ravens have one of the most, not just dynamic, but one of the most dangerous teams in the AFC, because we've seen Lamar Jackson at MVP level.
It's going to be a shock to the system when their offense lines up. It's going to be like Chip Kelly and Michael Vick. Todd Monken runs basically the same kind of pacing and spacing on offense as Chip Kelly did, and it's going to be a shock to the system, to the rest of the AFC North.
All right, well, with Lamar there and finally has his contract. So a lot of people talk about the AFC East, right? Because the Bills are the Bills and the Jets look so much better and got Rodgers and Miami and everything else. I would make an argument the AFC North is actually the best division in football and I think could be the most competitive. So I asked everyone to put the picks up on the screen there, and let's go through it here. Who do we like in that division? We just heard Sal raving about the Ravens. Orlovsky, you still like Cincinnati in the AFC North? Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.